Stay the course. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep compounding. Stay consistent. Put your ego aside. Realize you don't know what you don't know. Keep playing big and go for it. And why not you?
You know, as I've gone on this journey of personal development, I've had the opportunity to meet some very awesome individuals. And over the last few years, there have been a few that have stood out. Some people know how to stand up for themselves from the outset. Some people are open about how they go about their journey. And this individual in particular, an author, a speaker, an entrepreneur, an athlete, a coach, and the founder of CLS, Cultivating Lasting Symphony. Please welcome to the show none other than Mr. Craig Siegel. How are you today, sir?
Jonathan, thank you, brother, for the unbelievable introduction. I'm excited to be here. There's literally no place in the world I'd rather be. Let's have some fun. Let's get nuts.
So you start off your podcast by asking a very unique question, and I'm going to be a bit cliche to start off and pose it to you. What is your superpower?
I have a couple. I think we all have several. One that comes to mind, straight off the cuff, would be determination. I'm determined.
And in that determination, in reading your book, the Reinvention Formula, if you haven't already, go pick up your copy. This human just knows what he's talking about. The foreword's written by John Gordon. In cultivating that determination and building that determination, where do you think it comes from?
I've had an edge, like a chip on my shoulder, so to speak, from a very early age. And the truth of the matter is, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I wasn't one of those cats that grew up and was like, oh, I want to play for the Yankees, or I want to be a Hollywood actor. I always knew that there was something else out there, bigger or more impactful and meaningful to do with my life. I just was unable to put it together. I had some interesting peaks and valleys throughout the journey. There was Wall Street, there was high school, there was college, there was stuff like that. But I always felt like I was a gladiator in the wrong arena. I'm not sure how I cultivated this edge. I think I just felt like I wasn't super talented. I was teased a little bit when I was younger. I was short. I still am short. I'm 5'7.5". I had acne. I didn't have a ton of confidence growing up. And I just started to cultivate this gritty edge. Like one day I'm going to put this all together. And I will never stop trying until I figure it out. And I just was determined, and ultimately ended up on Wall Street after college. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I was fascinated with stocks and I was ambitious. And that was a great stop on the journey. It ultimately wasn't sustainable. It stopped becoming fun. It was super stressful and so forth. And then all of a sudden I started running marathons, and I'd never been a runner. In fact, you couldn't pay me to run, but I was determined. And I think if you look at my life, there's nothing really, and this is me being 100% vulnerable, and I've never said this before. I'm just straight off the cuff. It's Friday afternoon before holiday week. I'm excited to be here with you. I don't think there's anything about me that wows you, right? I'm not super tall. I'm not super fast. I'm not super handsome, depending upon who you ask. I'm not unbelievable at anything, but I have a maniacal drive. I am determined. I'm relentless. I think really big. I'm passionate. I have a sense of urgency. And I think those are traits that are really accessible to anybody, like consistency, but most people sadly don't tap into it. So I'm not 100% sure where the determination and the edge comes from. I just felt like I was always maybe overlooked and undervalued, and I just wanted to put it together, and I finally did. And so now I'm in alignment, and I can honestly say that I'm a gladiator in the correct arena.
What I love about the vulnerability and the authenticity behind it, and it comes throughout the tone of the book. Like you could hear your voice naturally. It's your book.
That's the feedback I'm getting.
It's crazy, which is which
no
makes you
ghostwriter.
really. That's what I'm saying. Like it's a very effective tone. Like it's something that you own, and it's something that comes across in the written word, which is not easy to do. When you started all of the efforts that you put in towards becoming this high-achieving personal development, motivational speaker, coach, entrepreneur, how did you go about developing the confidence to go and achieve this version of yourself?
I always had a lot of self-belief. There were bits and seasons where I didn't necessarily have confidence for different reasons, particularly because I wasn't experienced different things. But once I stumbled upon personal development, which is a really pivotal life moment, and I talk about that in the book, was at the same time when I got to Wall Street and I started going on YouTube and I saw videos of my now good friend Eric Thomas preaching and speaking about mindset. And then I stumbled upon NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and I started to understand that you could change your perspective, you could revamp your mindset, you can think bigger, you can move past limitations. And I think once I started to understand that, I started to become more confident that I could step into different and new arenas without experience and still have success. And so when I started running, I was far from a talented runner by any means, but I started to think like I've been successful at other things. I'm just not going to give up, and I'm willing to study. I'll see how can I become faster? How can I work on my nutrition? How can I work on my recovery? And I started to get really fast for the average person, I would say. And then that was really pivotal too, because that really cemented that I could be successful in anything if I'm willing to put in the work, because running to me was so not natural. And so when I started CLS, or even a step behind that, when I started to get clarity in the lockdown and I started to put it together, and this felt really good to me. But just to be clear, to give your listeners some context, I didn't have any celebrity friends. I didn't have any connections. I had less than 300 Instagram followers. I had nothing going on, but I literally did like an audit, and I realized that I had been successful in multiple different things that I wasn't necessarily passionate about or weren't like in alignment with me, but I figured it out, and I was willing to be resourceful and get off my butt and be resilient. And so I could take those characteristics, discipline, stuff like that, that made me successful in other areas, and transfer and allocate them into CLS, even though I had no social media presence or anything like that. And I think this is so important for anybody listening right now. I imagine, and one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about the book, that I'll talk about it until I'm blue in the face, is because I don't believe it's niche. I believe it's for anybody in any capacity that wants to think and play bigger and do something great with their life. And so for anyone listening right now, I'm not asking, I'm telling you, you've been successful in something in your life. It wasn't the thing that made you successful, it was you. And some of those characteristics are transferable to whatever you want to do in any other endeavor. And so being able to anchor success from the past, I'm able to bring that to the present and the future and step into that with not cockiness or arrogance, but a cool, calm, collective confidence and aura that I know I'll be able to figure it out, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes ethically to get better at it.
I love the way you phrase that, and I'm going to do my best to sum it up into one or two words: stacking evidence, where you have this long trail of evidence, a bunch of parallels where you've been successful in other arenas, as you put it, a gladiator in a different arena, and then you take all that frame and then you bring it to an arena where you know you belong and establish yourself as a different type of presence, where obviously, you've taken the world by storm over the last couple of years. You've grown exponentially, and, part of it is, and you touched on it with your network. I know at some point we're going to tap into the motivational speaking version, like you were just bringing the heat right now, but I'd love to learn, for selfish reasons, about your perspective around networking, maybe some insight as to how to effectively and ethically and authentically tap into a network.
I think a good word to use there is authentically. I don't try to be anyone I'm not at this stage of my life. I am a recovering people pleaser, and I was inauthentic for a very long time. And so when I stepped into this, I promised myself, although there were no guarantees, that for the first time in my life, I'd be really me, no matter what that looks like. And if it's not for other people, that's okay. But at least if it doesn't work out, I could fail being myself. And as it turns out, when I did that, the world began to see me. And so when I create strategic relationships, and people ask me, I get asked a lot of stuff all the time because people want to know how we did what we did in a relatively short amount of time. But I think one of the questions I get asked the most is, how did you form these relationships? People say to me, like, is there anyone you haven't interviewed yet? And for me, it's a couple things. Number one, I doubled down on my community when I first started CLS. It occurred to me that no matter how good I'm able to become at this personal development stuff, none of it matters if there's nobody there to consume it, digest it. So I really put an emphasis on building a community. So that's one thing I have to offer people, right? When people come to collaborate with me, they know that it's not just air. Like there's going to be people there that are going to want to see what they have going on. And then also, I always go into any type of relationship with a win-win. How can I support you? And here's how I think you might be able to support me if you're open to it. And then another thing is humility, brother. Like, I try to be as humble as I possibly can these days. I don't know what I don't know. I don't think I'm better than anybody. I am further ahead than certain people, just like there's people a little bit further ahead than me. But I don't. I just try to be myself, be thankful, be professional, be supportive, be kind, and really try to develop a rapport. Right, like when I have these people on the podcast, I want to make it the greatest interview they ever had in their entire life. Because I know that if I could do that, number one, it's going to make for the most compelling content for our audience. But number two, there's a really good chance that that jug, as I like to call them, juggernauts, are going to want to continue the relationship, share the show, do some more stuff, right? So I don't go into anything without it being intentional. And I want to do the best that I can in every single thing that I do, whether that's brushing my teeth or having podcast episodes or going to an event, shaking somebody's hand and looking them in the eye, building a rapport. And when you do that, I believe it's contagious. And then people want to develop a relationship with you right back.
I love the emphasis on community building. I have another question I want to ask, but because you brought it up and I'd be remiss if I didn't touch on it, could I get your insight on what it takes to build a community, maybe an effective strategy or two for the audience out there?
A personal connection, brother. This is such a big difference between a community and an audience. This isn't just for people that are building a personal brand, although I talk about that a lot these days because not by design, but because of what we've been able to do, a lot of people want me to coach them or help them build a personal brand. And I feel it's my responsibility to give it back. But when you cultivate a community, the reason why like the CLS membership, like our flagship program that we have, is blowing up, and people say they've never seen a vibe like it. Even when we have guest speakers, they come in, they hit me up on the side like, Craig, I've never seen a support system like you're building where there's no egos. Everybody just wants each other to win and do great things. And one of the ways I was able to do that is by going the extra mile and really creating a personal connection. Like in the beginning, when I was building CLS in the beginning of the pandemic, while most people were binge watching Tiger King and drinking a bottle of wine a day, I was staying up sometimes till 2, 3 in the morning, responding back to anybody that was gracious enough to leave a comment on one of my pieces of content. Obviously, I can't do that now because there's just so many people reaching out, but still, to the best of my ability, I try to make it a personal and human connection. I want to interact with people. What you see right now is exactly the cat that you'll meet in person one day, God willing. And so it's just me, and I genuinely want everybody to win. I think there's more than enough for all of us, right? And so I think that just comes across, and it's contagious. People want to be around that. You know, when you think of an audience, you think of like people on social media, but like fake followings, and like it's just metrics. A community is engaging, it's loyal, ride or dies. And if you ever wanted to reinvent or pivot, they'll probably come with you because you are the vibe and they're attracted to you. So just going the extra mile to really serve that specific group, I think is really monumental to build a community. And it's also the big difference between a community and an audience.
I've never heard that concept articulated in that manner, community versus audience, because like you said, engagement is what it comes down to. And kind of in that same hemisphere, you know, we did touch on it. You have this awesome sentiment about thoughts are random, thinking is not. How did you come to this idea?
Yeah, I think I always knew that from studying NLP and doing a lot of my own emotional intelligence work and stuff like that, that most of the thoughts that we get over the course of the day are negative. So it's on us to be strategic on which ones we want or allow to take up real estate. And we have the option to implement more productive ones and give those energy and so forth. But I believe I was having a conversation with my now good friend John Asseroff from The Secret, and he articulated it probably a little bit more beautiful than I did, if I'm being honest. And he said something along those lines, and it just always stuck with me. The concept remains the same, and that is that anybody listening right now, most of your thoughts over the course of the day unconsciously will be negative. That's why most people, they don't have a system in place to do anything about that. And as a result, they often stay in a lowered frequency and don't perform whatever it is they're doing, life, to the highest of their abilities. But now that you have awareness and that you know that, you can now transform from reactive to proactive and do something about it and start feeding your mind with positive thoughts, right? Because the thoughts might be random. You can't do anything about that. But now you could be strategic on how you think. So you can start implementing productive thoughts and so forth. And those turn into beliefs and behaviors and actions and results. And so I think that concept, although so simple, is really the difference that makes a difference. And anyone listening right now, if you truly grasp that and you're willing to understand it and do the work, you're now in control of your frequency and your vibe and your vibration and what kind of state you're in. And that's really everything in life, your physiology. So you have to be so intentional with the thoughts. And if you don't like the ones that you're currently getting, or if you find yourself in a rut, it's just temporary. It doesn't have to turn into a bad day or a bad week or a bad month or a bad year, like it did for me a few years back when I didn't really have these systems. So understand that this is how it works, and then be intentional with the thinking aspect of it.
Let's double click on that concept of frequency. When I was interviewing David Meltzer, he had also brought up something similar. I know you guys have a great rapport. Can you just elaborate on the concept of frequency, vibration? What are you really saying when you offer that?
So this is a vibrational universe, right? Meaning like everything is based upon energy, right? It's like if you go into a room, right, and you don't even hear anybody, you can already assume like what's going on because your energy will introduce you before you even speak. You could see who's on fire, who's got confidence. You could see who's a little timid, who might be in a lowered state, who might be giving off negative vibes. It's all an energy, right? The whole universe is connected. Me and you are pieces of energy, essentially. And so by being super strategic with elevating your frequency, like we just talked about, like feeding positive thoughts, being around people that inspire you, not bleed you, now all of a sudden you're operating at a higher frequency. And from that state of consciousness, you're more available for creative divine downloads, right? You can do great things. You get great ideas. That's why working out is so important for me this stage of my life. It's not so much for the physical component, although it is great to look naked, look great naked and so forth, but that's just a byproduct. For me, it's because I'm starting to feel good. My body's feeling good, and I'm available, and I get great ideas. That's a way someone can raise their frequency, right? And when it comes to vibration, just understand that like this whole universe is a vibrational universe. Everything vibrates, and everything is energy. And when you know that, then you really comprehend that this is just a soul and a spirit having a human experience right now, right? This is just a vessel. Obviously, yours is a little bit more handsome than mine, but inside of it is energy and a spirit and a soul. And once you grasp that, you're limitless. You could tap into anything. There's nothing that you can't do. You collapse time. That's how when you hear people talk about the quantum, and you can have quantum leaps and have a tremendous amount of success in a short amount of time once you comprehend that. And also like the 1% world, the 3D that we're looking at right now, like that's only 1%, the physical. The 99% is all the energy and the vibrations. And once you tap into that, there's nothing that you can't do. So it's really just understanding that there's a lot more out there than just this 3D physical component that's you and I speaking right now.
I love the way you encapsulated that and put it all into like this simple framework that people could just simply understand energy physics. Like you're kind of meeting someone where they're at and getting a feel for who they are and letting that kind of dictate how you're going to approach.
And even just real
So,
quickly, I just want to
yeah,
touch
of
on
course.
that. If you want to change someone else's state, you got to go into a higher state yourself. So, like,
Mm.
if I wanted to bring you up right now, I come in swinging, I'm on fire, good vibes, telling you you're handsome, everything is great. You're probably going to be, it's contagious. You're going to elevate your state. But if I came on here today and I was like, hey, how you doing? Yeah, I just want to start the weekend already. You're going to be in a lower. It's just, it's contagious. It's an energy. So
Yeah.
this is really big way to build rapport for anyone out there. I learned this in LP. It's very effective. If you want to change somebody else's state, start first by you elevating your state first.
What I also like about the way you go about just your whole energy while we're on the topic is that there's a lot of depth into the interactions that you bring. Rather than overthinking, there's a lot of thought that goes into it. And so, what I mean by that is you ask a lot of very tempered and valuable questions that maximize the output of the individual you're engaging with when you interview them. What is the art of asking a good question in your view?
It's just that it's being able to ask really powerful questions that open up neural pathways that really get someone thinking. And also, I mean, for me personally, I imagine you agree, like surface level content, like it's a dime a dozen. I want to go deep below the surface. That's where the good stuff is. That's where we can really understand someone's DNA, what makes them tick, what makes them great. And also asking tough questions sometimes, just being vulnerable and creating the space for that. So I think there's something to be said about asking really, really powerful questions, whether it's a coaching client or a podcast interview. It just helps people really take a second and think before they answer and really put effort into it. And it, to be honest with you, I think it creates like a dopamine hit because now all of a sudden you're showing effort and you're building rapport. And that's a beautiful thing to have.
The other thing is at the end of each chapter of your book, in addition to asking questions, you have a call to action. And that call to action is framed in the form of a question. Could you explain why that thought process is so valuable?
Yeah. Because in the beginning of the book, I said something like, um, going to a lot of events and speaking, I started to see like these self-help event junkies. And what I mean by that is like you'll see the same people that go to every single event, which is great, but they're not really changing or elevating their life. That's concerning. So that's why I think that knowledge is not power. It's potential power if you can digest it and apply it, right? So many people read books hundreds of times, yet they're not fulfilled in their life. They're not making a lot of money. They're not happy. So why, like, how is it helping you? It doesn't seem like it is. So when I ask a call to action at the end of every chapter, for me, that creates something tangible and actionable that you can start doing immediately. And then you could at least collect some data, right? So, for example, and I just opened the book right now to a random chapter. It's called Adversity, chapter 10. Great one. At the end of the chapter, it says, ask yourself, what current obstacle can become a blessing in disguise with a reframe, right? So, for me, I think of like when I had the tumor in my foot and I was unable to train for the Chicago Marathon. I did end up running New York anyway and all that good stuff. But when I asked myself that question, that obstacle of not being able to train turned into a blessing in disguise because it enabled me to take a step back. And because I wasn't spending time physically running, I used that time to really dive into the quantum and reread the secret and understand that vibration frequency stuff. And so just by asking yourself something right away, it makes you aware and conscious, and then it's tangible. And I think that's so important based upon all the books that I've read. Some are forgettable, some are good, whatever the case may be. I just wanted to create something tangible where you can really sink your teeth into at the end of every single chapter. I know for me personally, as a reader, that's very helpful.
100%. And you were talking about reframing. I was just interviewing world-renowned psychologist, author, and Holocaust survivor who I believe you should also meet, Dr. Edith Eger. If you haven't already met her, she's a phenomenal human being. You guys would get along great. She talks about the power of reframing trauma and understanding and looking at it as a form of a gift. So this way you could help someone else heal. And I know you're very familiar with Viktor Frankl's work. Edith Eger is his protege. So that's just a nice introduction that I think would be worthy for you. I'm also very curious about, what do you think about the future of the personal development space? You touched on the self-help junkies out there. Where do you see things going?
I think that because it became so trendy and opportunistic for everybody and their mother to become like a coach or put themselves on social media in the pandemic, which I understand because there wasn't much else to do at that point. And you should take advantage of the opportunity that is social media and so forth. But I think now, I mean, it's so easy for me to see. It's like you can sniff the fluff, right? Like you can see who's standing next to a rented Lamborghini and like talking about something that they've never experienced, stuff like that. So I think it's a really good time for the people that are putting in the work and that are doing great stuff, because the fluff is going to fizzle out and it's going to catapult the people that are in this for the right reasons that are doing fantastic work. And I think that's really special. And also, like, there's something to be said about AI and things that come along that change, the course of life and so forth. But you can't replace this conversation right here, right? So I think it's a great time to be in this space if you are trying to make this a career. But also, if you're just a consumer, I think there's some really, 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 really talented people out there that you have an opportunity to learn from, like me and you right now, having this great conversation. I mean, this is free content, essentially, to anybody that wants to grasp it. And we definitely dropped some 6 or 7 figure nuggets on this call that someone can chew on and apply right away. So I think it's just like anything. Like, it's a saturated space, but as I talk about in the book, if you don't clap when you see others win, you're missing the point, because saturation just shows that there's a market for it. And as I always like to say, there's always room for the best. So I think it's a good time, and it's only going to get better.
Got 2 more questions for you here. One, I believe you'll be able to get through rather quickly. What does reinvention mean?
I'm actually doing my best right now to reinvent reinvention. And what I mean by that is, so we just got selected for its head talk, which I'm pumped about. It's in October.
Congrats, man. Well deserved.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. I'm excited. And I haven't really publicly said this, but the topic is reinventing reinvention. And it's an interesting dynamic. And I want to be clear, because the thought of, first of all, I think everybody should be reinventing themselves in some capacity, right? No matter what you're doing in life, you should always be looking to level up and think and play bigger and shed old skins and expand. But what I want everybody to know is that you're not starting from scratch. You're taking the things that you've learned and experienced throughout your life, and you're allocating them to whatever you're doing next. So reinventing yourself is not starting from zero. You're starting where you're at with all your life experience, some of the mistakes, whatever the case may be, but a lot of data. And that's a beautiful thing. And what is that one thing that you've been denying to do, the thing that you've been putting off? That's what I want to see people lean into. Oftentimes the ego is the loud voice telling you can't do things, live in scarcity, play small. The soul, that little tug that you get, that's like a whisper, that's what you got to raise the volume to. That's the thing that you've been denying. And that's what I want to see people lean into. And when I think of reinvention, that's what I think of.
There's a tradition on this podcast that I ask every guest if the future version of themselves from 10 years from now, assuming that the individual is in the ideal spot that you want to be, was to fly in and offer you some advice in order to get there, what do you think he would say to you?
Stay the course. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep compounding. Stay consistent. Put your ego aside. Realize you don't know what you don't know. Keep playing big and go for it. And why not you? And be willing to adapt and pivot if need be. Don't get in your own way. Most importantly, stay committed. And I say very humbly, what we've done, the trajectory, we're doing all the things. It's if it was a stock, it'd be going, and for those that can't see me, it's like going up diagonally perfectly. You don't want it to go too high because you often crash and burn. It's going up consistently, and that's all I can ever ask for. And I'm still figuring things out. I'm very intentional and strategic with everything I do, but I'm also available, right? And I'm willing to hear new things and try new things in different seasons of life, but just keep doing what we're doing. Stay consistent, always be learning, and master the art of showing up.
Craig, thank you so much for your time today, man. Please let the community and the audience know where they can find you.
Yeah. First of all, I enjoyed the conversation very much. Thank you for building rapport and doing a great job. Anywhere you buy books, the Reinvention Formula. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, the CLS Experience. If you want to find out about our community, go to cultivatelastingsymphony.com. And if you like inspirational texts throughout the course of the week, totally free, you could text us at 917-634-3796. Text the word Jonathan, so I know that you heard it here. And please come interact with us on social media at Craig Siegel _CLS. To the best of my ability, I love to interact, and there's a good chance it'll be me. Let's all think really, 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 really big and go for it.
Thank you so much for your time, man.
Thank you, brother.